and welcome. So today we're going to look at Content Management System, or CMS, the Essentials class. So if you have never worked in the CMS before, whether it's this system, which is called Drupal, or another CMS, some of the ideas or how they work are very similar and they translate across systems. So if you've never worked in one before, it's no problem. If you have, that's great. Some more experience just makes it easier to work in another CMS. So the whole idea behind a content management system is it just makes it easy for us to update a website without having to know how to write code as it used to be done back in the day. So we don't need to have that kind of experience. We just need to go in and edit what our content says, and then the system will take care of the rest. So we'll get to see that today and do some practice with it if you have not worked in it before. So like I said, my name is Connor, and I've been a trainer for several years, and CMS is something I've been training on through most of that. Not always this Drupal system, but like I said, they all work kind of similar. So what our plan for today is, we'll take a very quick high-level look at the CMS here at KU. Most of our time today, though, we're going to be in training/practice sites, where we'll edit the content and pages that are there. We'll create brand new pages that don't exist and put them into the navigation. And that's where most of our time is going to be spent, because we're going to look at not just how to actually edit content, but we're going to talk a little bit about what makes good content versus content that might not be so good. And then at the end, we'll look through how we can change the navigation of our site. So if we end up putting something in one area with a page and we're in one section, we don't like it there, we want to move it somewhere else, or we don't really like the way our pages are organized, there's a really easy way we can go in and just rework or reorganize them. So we'll go through that together. And then we'll take a very quick look at what are called content types. And I'll just explain more about that when we get there. It's easier than trying to explain it now, as well as reports. That's one last thing we'll look at. So we may not use all of our scheduled time, but if we have questions, we've plenty of time to work with. So like I said earlier, if you do have anything, feel free to ask. So for our overview, easiest way to look at this is there are three main factors that make up our site. So our public website, representing our department or maybe our research site or project, whatever we're using our CMS site for. And the three factors that make it up is ourselves. We manage the content and what it actually says, what's up on the site for people to read. We have web developers here in IT, so they make sure the system runs and they can help with the coding and stuff like that. If we ever need something, if we're trying to get something done and it's outside of our expertise, you can always chat with them and see if it's possible that they could help. But they make sure it runs, that's their main function. And then we have marketing communications. So they are really responsible for the brand of KU itself. And so the style sheets, what that means is that they set the look and feel of the KU websites for the CMS. That way, all of our departments as a university look very consistent together. So that could be things like font, color, where things are organized on a page. So we don't have much control over that side of it. All of our control is over what the content is itself. There are three permission roles. So anybody, you don't have to be in this group, anybody can come see the site so the public can see it. But starting to make changes, the contributor would be that first level of permission group. So we won't see how to work with permissions today. That's the site admin class, but just so you start to get an idea of how this works. The contributor can only edit certain things on the site, and it's mainly just pages. But everything that the contributor changes has to be approved by a system administrator. So when they make a change, it'll stay in a draft, and then they'll submit that, which means an email will get sent to all the system administrators on the site saying that Connor has submitted this for approval. Today we're editors. So that's what we'll sign into our practice sites as. So editors, that next level up, can do just about anything on the site. They don't have to get approval for any changes they make to pages. We can just publish them right away. The few things that we can't do are, there's one thing what we'll look at in the site admin class that we might have to change, but I'll show you when we get to the site where that is. But then that's something we'll look at in the site admin class. It's just because we as editors don't have access to it, as well as the permission stuff. So being able to add or remove people and change their permissions, that's all with the site admin. So it just works based on these three groups: contributor, editor, and site admin. And to repeat myself, today we're just as the editor. So any questions on permissions or any of that overview before we move on? Oh yeah, look at that. All the X's, that's perfect. Thanks very much. All right. So what we're going to do is I will show you a couple of sites here first, especially if you don't have multiple screens. But we are going to be signing into sites here just in a minute. So if you want to get a pen and paper and take note of this, I'm going to give everyone a number. And what you'll do is we'll use this address to go to our training site. You're going to replace this hashtag with the number that I give you. And then when you get there, the username and password you can use to sign in is editor. So I'll leave this up just for a second while I'm giving numbers out, so you can just write this down if you're not going to be able to see it on the screen. And Aidan, will begin with you. If you just take number 2. So I have number 1, Aidan, number 2. And then, oh, it's cutting it off. It looks like, is it Laura? Lori, number 4. Leo, if you take number 5, please. Megan, number 6. Micah, number 7. Tiffany, number 8. And TK, if you take number 9, please. So it would be class 9.drupal.ku.edu, in your case, TK. And when you get there, you'll click on the KU directory and we'll go non-KU user just for this training site. So I'm going to switch here. If you're still looking at my screen, I'm going to leave this presentation and I'm going to sign in, just to go through the steps on the screen. So this is my training site. It doesn't look the prettiest because we've just been playing around with it in our classes. They do get reset eventually. So when I get to the site, I click on KU directory. Now, if this was going to be my actual department website that I'm going to update, then I would just use KU user to sign in, and it's going to be my KU ID and password. But since it's a training site, we just go to non-KU users. And then this is where I'll put in that editor. And I'm signed in. All right, so let's just take a second to get signed in. Once you've logged into the site, you should see the black toolbar across the top and then a gray toolbar just below that, but they're both at the top of the screen. And once you're there, if you come back to Zoom, just give me a green check, please, and then we'll move forward. Perfect, most of us are there. Micah, thank you. Okay, so we'll start to get deeper and deeper. A tip for you, after this class today, when you go to sign in to your website, if you haven't done that before, so you wanted to take this first, and the first time you sign into your actual department site, if you don't see either of these bars, then that means you don't have access to your site. So a system admin will have to add you to one of those groups, either contributor or editor, and then you'll see these. So that's one really quick way to just tell if you need access or not. While we are signed in, we can still navigate through the website as a member of the public can. But we'll see extra things on the screen that they can't. So as I'm on pages, these little tabs will appear. So I can see right now we're looking at the view published. So that's showing me this published page that the public would see. I could start a new draft of the page. So that's where we'll go to edit our content here. And then moderate lets me see the version history of the page. So anytime we make a change, even if it's one tiny thing, it'll keep all the versions and what they were previously in our moderate section. I'm not going to do anything with our homepage though. I'm going to go into resources. And there's a couple of pages in there that we use for this. We have my form, and then there might be some sample pages left over from another training class. And then we have, well, the names might actually be a bit different. So it might say sample page, might say test page, might be something in there. Just don't use this my form. We'll go to one of these other ones. So this is an example of what a content page could look like. And I'm just responding to Aiden here 1 second. I have a chat message. So when you get there, and if you check the resources page, Aiden, as well, if you go to resources and then go to one of those sample pages. Now this one's a little different. We still have our view published, but instead of new draft, I see view draft or edit draft. So the little tabs on my screen are a bit different. So when we've started a new draft of a page that we're making changes to and we haven't published it yet, we can just leave the site when we save. Well, I save first. Then when we leave, we can come back and then we could see what's published, take a look at our draft version of the page, which looks like this, and then we can edit draft to just continue where we left off. So you don't have to do it all in one go. You can save and keep it hidden as a draft while you finish, or if you need to get more information. So there's only one draft at a time that's being worked on. That's why when you start a new one, that new draft button goes away. And let me just take a quick look at this other page on my site. So this is a good example for me. So let's see how we'll do this. I think what I'll do is, especially for those who might not have multiple screens, who can only follow along one at a time, is I'm going to go through some stuff on my side, and then we'll take a bit of time for us to close the Zoom window, or minimize it, sorry, and then give you a chance to practice as well. So we'll do watch me for a few minutes, and then we'll switch and have you try it, just to get some of that practice. So if you don't use the exact page I have because our sites are different, that's fine. As long as you use one of these sample or pages in here. I'm going to use this one just because it doesn't have a draft yet. So I'm going to start a new draft from scratch here. So to edit this page that's published, it's in my navigation, it's in the resources section. I'm going to click new draft. This is not going to take me to the back end of the system. So this is a spot that only contributors, editors, and site admins can get into. And the way it works, if you've never done CMS before, it's basically filling in a form and then all the content you fill into that form, that becomes the page. And that's the whole idea. So we can see the title of the page in my site is called Test Page 3. So I'm just going to actually rename that to Connor's training page. This tags field, you don't have to worry about that. It doesn't work. So we'll just skip it, never touch it. So title. And then we have the body field. And so this is where we'll put all of our actual content. And we can see all of our editing tools in these 2 lines. A lot of these are just really similar to how Microsoft Word works. So if editing a document, you're just editing content here. I'll go through a couple of these with us, just the ones that I think are important. But we're not going to go through all of this because it's pretty basic tools. Now, for the sake of time, and in reality, we'll probably do this ourselves anyway, is I'm going to copy and paste content from somewhere else into here. So we can type it in, of course, but realistically, we'll probably get sent content from somewhere else and be asked to put that into the site. So actually, let me just pull it from a different site over here. So I'm going to take some of this content here. Just doesn't even matter what it says. I just want something to work with because we're going to talk a little bit about formatting. So when I've got content and I have copied it, so whether you highlight and you right click and say copy, or you do Control C, when you paste it in here, what's really important is that you paste as plain text. And there's 2 ways to do that. The first way is in this toolbar on the 2nd line, close to the middle are these 3 clipboard options. When you hover over the middle, say paste as, etc., etc. The middle one is paste as plain text. So when we click on that tool, this box pops up and I can just do my normal paste into there. So all the content goes in, I click OK. What that does is that it takes away any formatting and any font that my site not agree with or doesn't agree with. So sometimes, especially when you bring it from Word documents or other websites that aren't KU, they don't fit our brand. And something could be in there that might just mess it up on our side. So it might look okay here. When we publish it, it might just have random bits of font that just don't match anything else. So it looks a bit messy. But when you do plain text, it just leaves the words, everything else switches to what it should be. So you can use the tool for paste as plain text. You can also use the keyboard shortcut, which is Control Shift V. Does the exact same thing. So pasting as plain text, very important. Now, I have a question for everyone who's in the training today. If I were to have content that looked like this, what do we think if I were to just put this up as a page? Is there anything wrong with that? Anything right with that? So for me, I see some issues with it. And it's getting into the topic of accessible content, which means we want to have content that the majority of people are going to be able to understand and comprehend. This makes it a bit hard. When we have a giant wall of text like this with no breaks, no sections, no paragraphs, no one wants to see that on the site. They're not going to take the time to read through that, and it's just going to hurt us in the long run. So we're not making our content very user-friendly. Now, by making it more user-friendly, we also make it more accessible for those who might need that extra help. So the easiest way we can do this is to just break our content up into sections. And by sections, it's just finding where we can break it and hit enter. and go into a new paragraph. So that's one big way to help. Another way is if you have what's the word? If you're able to go in and read the content and you're okay, whoever sent it to you is okay for you to make changes to that, like what it actually says, is taking out what I call fluff text or fluffy text. So just like keeping it nice and concise works a lot better when language comes in. So if it's just like a lot of self-promotion or just, I mean, the best way for me to describe it is just fluffy language. It's just there as a filler to make the page look longer. That's not stuff we really want. We just want to give the actual important information. So if there's ways we can just proofread through our content and make it more concise, then we can just clean up even the amount of content that's on the page and still have it broken up into sections. And then one last thing we'll look at here, and then we'll get some time to do this ourselves, is with each section, another really useful tip is every section gets a subheading to just show us what's in that section. So I'm going to make a page, let's say mine is about a scholarship that the department offers. So that'll be my example. So I'm going to say this is scholarship information. And then this second paragraph here, that's going to be application information. So I'm just using the enter key to move the paragraph down and give me an extra line, and then just typing in the header as plain text in here. This will be submittal information. So just to finish this off, and then we'll talk about why it's a bit important to have these headers, is we're not going to leave it just plain text like everything else. But we don't have to worry about what size or what font to use, whether it's bolded or not. All we have to do is highlight the subheader. And in our top toolbar, where it says normal in my screen, so the very first option in the top toolbar there is called paragraph format. And these are different formattings for text. So normal would just be our body of text, the main part of the content. And when we scroll through this list, we'll start to see all our heading levels. Heading 1, heading 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So I'm going to say heading 2. I just click on that in the list, and then that will format my text for me. That way, I don't have to think, and I know all my heading level 2s across all the websites are going to be consistent. So we'll see it again. Application information. I'm going to highlight that part of the text, click on the box where it says normal, and I'm going to scroll, and I'm going to make this one heading level 3. And submittal information, same thing. Highlight it, select the box, and I'm going to make this one 3 as well. All right, already that content looks better. Better for everyone. So we can scan through those titles or those subheadings, find the right section of the page, and then we can take the time to read through that paragraph if that's what we're looking for. So if I only care about submitting information or submitting the application, then I know exactly where to look on the page. This also helps with accessibility. So if somebody visits our website and they may be visually impaired, so they can't see as well, they can't see. If they have a software that it's a screen reading software, so it'll read everything, all the content to them so they can just hear it if they can't see that well. And part of that software that they all have is a keyboard shortcut that lets a user just listen to subheadings and skip through the page that way, so they don't have to sit and listen to every single thing. So if they want to, they'll hear scholarship information, they can do their keyboard shortcut and then jump to application information or jump to submittal information. So when they hear the right section, then they can just listen to that content that's relevant to them. But it only works if we format our headers this way. We highlight them and we select the heading from that box. That's what makes that work. So it is on us to make sure we do that. I see a question in the chat here. As far as I'm aware, Micah, yes, they are set as part of that style. So we can't actually change what font is used for body or the font used for the headings. We can just use normal text for that, like the actual body, and then just selecting our appropriate heading level. So they're all determined as part of that branding as far as I'm aware. The one thing we can change is the size. So when we click on the size box where font size is, it looks like this is broken, but it's the numbers are just, it is like visually broken, but it's still there, it works. When you hover over them, you'll see the little, that says number 8. And as you start to scroll and they get bigger, then we'll start to see them appear in the box. So it's not ideal there, but we can change some of the size, although I just recommend sticking with what the paragraph formats, what size they make everything. And then we can also do text color or making a color background behind the text. Although for accessibility, I would also not recommend that. If you are going to use color, use it very sparingly, and do some looking in online when it comes to contrast. You want to make sure that there's enough contrast that that color still makes the text legible to someone who might be visually impaired. So there's things you can check online that would look at the page and tell you if there's an appropriate level of contrast or not. But if you stick with just black text using those paragraph formats, it's a pretty safe bet that your content's going to be good. So let's do a little bit of practice for those if you have not been following along. We'll just do this part here, and then we'll switch and we'll look at a few other things we can do with our content using some of these tools, like creating hyperlinks, adding an image, and embedding a video. Those are the 3 things we'll look at next. But I want to make sure you get some hands-on time and be able to ask questions while I'm here. So let's minimize the Zoom window. On your site, go ahead and we'll edit some content on a page, and then just get some sections like this and get some subheaders in there, and then format those subheaders. And if you're ready to move on, you can just give me a green check mark. I'm going to clear all of those. But if everyone's giving me green checks, then we'll just move on right away. See a couple already. Okay, the majority of us are giving us green check marks. For those who haven't, I think for the sake of training, we'll do some more talking here through it. I'm going to send a follow-up email. It'll have a handout that talks over a lot of the stuff we're talking about here. It'll have some other resources as well. And you're more than welcome to use these practice sites after class if you do want to just go in and test in a site that you're not worried. You know, these aren't, we don't care what's on these. They're just for training. So it's just a nice, safe place to practice after as well. So more welcome to use those if you just write down your login info for it. And then I'll send the follow-up email with more stuff. Actually, before I forget to mention, in that follow-up email, I'm going to have links to these 2 sites. So this one is called contentaccessibility.ku.edu. So the link to this will be here. This gives you more ideas and things to think about for accessible content. So making sure we use those headers for visually impaired who might have screen readers. Talking about links and how to format those. So we're talking about some of it here in class, but just so you can reference it later. There's info on using content in documents, for websites like this. If you're working with videos, things to keep in mind for accessibility. So it just gives you some of those guidelines. The other one is cms.ku.edu, so I'll send the link to that as well. And in here is the instruction section. So you'll be able to find step-by-step instructions on how to use this Drupal system over everything. So when we go to instructions, it's going to be in these lists. So under basics, things that might apply, under your different content types, which we'll look at later. And so let's say if I need to know how to work with links, then I can just click on that and it's going to give me all the instructions. So this is another good resource just to keep if you like to read and try things yourself. One thing I forgot to mention about headers before we switch to links is the different levels, 2, 3, 4, etc. The way they work is it's kind of like a book. So our book has a title. That would be heading level 1. That's our page title up here. So that is level 1 already, and this is on the page. So then I would have chapters. So scholarship information would be chapter 1. And I will make that a heading level 2. So it's not the same format as the title, heading level 1. And then within scholarship information in that section, application and submittal info, that's part of that scholarship section. So then that goes to heading level 3. So it's like it's just following that logic. So the title of our book would be heading 1, heading 2 would be any chapters that we have. And then within that chapter, we have different sections with their own subheadings. And so that's why you use the different levels. They all look slightly different. It's just to help visually organize your content. So to use that in another example, if I were to have a different section altogether, just contact us. It's not really part of the scholarship information. It's just on this page. Then I can go back and make that a heading 2. So it resets into a new chapter. All right, let me get rid of that. I'll just leave it there. So there are 3 types of hyperlinks that we can create. We can create links to websites, links to documents, and links to email addresses. So we'll go through all 3 of these. Now, we're not going to just put a link like this. If I just say, click here for more info. Not very good practice. That was a good practice back in, I'd say, the 90s. Now we want to write our links a lot more what we would call descriptive hyperlinks. So the example would be, for more information, please visit the and I'll make that lowercase. So for more information, please visit the Connor Foundation website. So that would be the foundation behind the scholarship. And so we would make Connor Foundation website the hyperlink itself. So it's just part of that sentence. So if that is just, oh, that's common sense, I know that already, great. If you hadn't thought about that before, this is just a more clean, professional way to do our links. It gives context to the link. Why would I click on it and what am I going to find there? So I know it's a website and I know I'm going to find more information. When we're doing something like an email, it could be for questions, please email the department. And then I could make email the department the hyperlink. For documents, a little bit more to it. So I'm going to say download the scholarship application PDF. So 2 things going on with documents. Usually it's the title of the document itself. So if it's just say like a request form, that's what we would call it. It's the request form, or it's the scholarship application, or it's the terms and conditions. So we give it the title. We also put in the file type, PDF. And so all of this would become the link, scholarship application PDF. So again, it gives that context. I know it's a PDF, or if it's not a PDF, if it's some other file type, I know what file type it is. So we try to use PDF as much as possible. I know sometimes we can't. Let's say it was an Excel file as an example, and we didn't put it up as a PDF. If I'm on my phone, I can't open Excel files on my phone. I don't want to. Then if I see that as the link, then I know I'm just not going to click on it. Or it gives me that choice. I'll open it later. PDF, that's the most accessible file type. Every device can basically open a PDF. So you'll find stuff like that we just talked about in that content accessibility site, just to help you think if this isn't something that comes naturally. All right, so let's actually do it. Enough talking. So set up the link. I'm going to highlight the text. In the top toolbar, closer to the right-hand side, is this link icon. When I click on that little chain icon, and it's just next to that flag, this box pops up. So I have to set what type of link it is. An internal path, that's a link that will just go to another page that's on my website. So I can just link between the pages. In this case, it's going to go to a separate website. So I'll switch that type to URL. And then I can just copy and paste the address in, or I'm going to just type ku.edu here. I'll switch that to HTTPS there. So for the most part, we'll just copy and paste an address in. And when you copy and paste it into the URL field, this protocol will change, and that's fine. Just let it do what it wants. And then I'll click OK. And that's it. So now it's even a different color, and when I hover over it, that underline appears. Same thing with email. We're going to highlight our text that will become the link. Click on that icon. And then our link type is email. Pretty straightforward. This just changes the options we have. So then for email address, I would put in whatever, if it's a department email or if it's an individual email, list that in there. So I'm going to just put test@ku.edu. And it doesn't matter what email service the person uses when they click that link, whether it's Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever they're using, doesn't matter. What it does is it just starts a new draft of an email that they use with this address filled in. And then if you put a subject and a body, that will also be filled in that initial draft. The only required part is the address itself. So it's just to make sure that it helps people get questions sent to the right people if they're not sure who to contact. The subject, that can help you on your side manage your inbox. So depending on how you manage, if you use rules in Outlook, you could have a rule set up to look for that subject and then move it into a certain folder. Whatever you do to manage, that can just help you. And then the body could help you as well, or you could even put questions in there if you want people to try and help them help you. So if you get really generic emails asking questions and you have to do more digging, to help yourself, you could put something in the body right away saying like, please provide all of the following information, just to help improve your life. Otherwise, you just put the address. I'll leave that blank. Click OK. That link's done. Now the document, not as straightforward, or I don't think it's not as intuitive. So we'll still highlight the text. We'll still click on the link icon in that top toolbar, but we don't have a link type called document. So what we have to do is go to URL, and because we don't have a URL for it, we have a document, we can't really copy and paste here. We have this button for Browse Server. So the server, when I click on that button, is going to bring up another window, and I just see some folders. So what this is, it's storage for our website. So this is separate from my hard drive on my computer or my Teams network drive that we use or anywhere else we keep folders. This is just on the site itself. So we'll have to upload the document in here first, and then we can create the link for it. We'll also come back and see this in a minute because we're going to talk about images, and this is where we also save those images. But first, let's go to Documents. There's already some uploaded into these folders, so if it was already here, I could just use it. For example, there's a PDF there. If that was it, then I can just select it. Otherwise, when I'm in the folder on the left, in the top corner, it says Upload. So then I'll just go through, I would choose a file. This is where I'll find where it's saved on my computer. I'll open it. So I've got my file selected. I'll click Upload, and then it will appear in that list. So just depends. If it's the first time you're using that document, you will have to upload it. If it's already in here, then you can just select it on the list and click Insert File. Then we can see the URLs filled in for us now. And then I'll click OK. So that's that setup. So we just seen website, email, and document, and we talked a little bit about descriptive hyperlinks, so writing those sentences and giving that context. It looks good. It also helps people with screen readers. It's really bad practice if you were to just put a URL like this onto a web page. That one, not so bad itself, but sometimes URLs are just full of crazy characters. But when we have a link like this, especially with a screen reader, it's going to go through and read all these characters. And if it's a long URL, it's even worse. Whereas if we clean it up and make it look like this, it gives them that nice context. So I'll just check here if there are any questions over creating those links. Especially the document part, if we have any questions on that or want to see that again. Okay, clear all those things. So last two things I mentioned, we'll do images, and then we'll look at embedding a video. Now, the best thing that I have found for images is to put my cursor where I want the image to go on the page. So if I want my image, I'm going to actually put it here between contact us and then the submittal information. So I'm going to create an extra line between those two sections, and you can see my cursor is just flashing on that blank line. So that's exactly where my image is going to go. It's better to do that first because it's not so easy to move the picture once it's in here. The easiest thing is if it's in the wrong spot is to delete it and then reinsert it in the right spot. So once I've got my cursor there, in the top toolbar, right-hand side, on the other side of that flag is the image icon. And right next to that is embed media. So we'll do image first. So we'll click on image. It'll bring up this properties window. And so what we need to do is go get an image. I'm going to go to my server that we were just in for documents, except this time I'm looking for a picture. So we have an image area and a document area in here. And so the same idea, if I don't have a picture that's in this folder, I've just taken it and I want to use that instead, then I'll just have to upload it into the folder first. So you click on upload, you'd go through and find where it's saved. Once it's in here, you can click on it in the list and you'll see the preview just below. So you can make sure that that's the right picture. So I'm going to use this nice little aerial view of Potter Hall. So once I've got that, I can just click Insert File. brings me back to the properties window, and now I see in the preview box, there's the picture. Now this next field, alternative text, that's also really important. It's easy to forget this because it's not a required field. I've been trying to get that changed in the system, but haven't done it yet. If you're not sure why it's important, it all comes back to that accessibility again, especially with those screen readers. So as it's reading all the content, a screen reading software will come across a picture, and it's smart enough to know that it's an image. So it will say image of, but we have to put in what it's an image of. So that's what that alternative text field is. It will, if they can't see what that image is and it's important to our content, then we'll need to give them that context. So in this case, it could just be aerial view of Potter Hall. So I don't have to put in image of. The screen reader already does that for me. I just need to say what it is. It doesn't have to be really fancy or very specific. Just a quick sum that if I didn't know what that picture was or couldn't make it out clearly, that I would know. Another important tip just to note here is this one has no text in the image itself, which that's not a problem. But let's say we had a graphic designer create a picture for us that said scholarship application now available. And you could click on that picture and it would link to the application. That's really different. That text is part of that image, but that's giving us context. It's telling me that the application is not available, but that's not written anywhere else on the page. The screen reader can't tell that that's text. It just sees a picture. So if we ever have something like that with really important text that's part of the picture, then we just have to make sure alternative text matches the text in the image itself. So in my example, I said scholarship application now available. So if there's no text and the text is not important at all, so maybe it was a picture of a newspaper, it doesn't really matter what the newspaper says, then that's okay. But if the text is giving a message and telling somebody something, we have to make sure it matches alternative text. The rest of this stuff's pretty easy. We've got width and height. So if you change that, it'll change the preview over here. And if I want to change the width and height separate, so like I can change width without height also changing, you can click on this padlock and it'll look like it's broken. So that just lets you change these separately. So now if I go 600, you can see it stays 440 there. It's really easy to mess up the image this way when it's broken with this padlock. So the ratio is different just because it can start to look really skewed like this. Let me do that. So if you mess it up so much, you can just click on the reset button next to that padlock and it goes back to the way it was at the start. And then border and H and V space, as you put numbers in, you'll see in the preview exactly what happens. So in border, it creates this big border around the image. If I put that back to 0, and then space adds blank space around the picture. So let me move over a bit here. So if I decide, and all this text here, by the way, that's in the preview box, it's just to show you what the picture is in relation to what your text would look like. But this isn't going to actually be on your page. It'll be your content. So this is just showing me how big it is compared to that and how much spacing it's going to have. So maybe I don't like how close that is. I want a bit more room between the text and the picture. That's what I could use this space for. You can see now it creates that negative space there. And I'll put some below it as well. So I feel a bit better about that. So that's all that's for. Your alignment is just text wrap. Is it going to wrap left or right around the picture? If you leave it as not set, which I will do, then the text will just go above and below it. And I'll click OK, and there it is. So there's no text on the side of it, just around it. I see some extra spacing that was added in. Let's clean up some of that, but I'm happy enough there. Questions on that? Yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. If you do have questions later, like I said, just send me an email. The last thing we're going to look at, now this one, might not have to do it very often, but if we ever need to embed a video onto our page as well, then, oh, hold on one sec. Oh, no problem. I'm just going to go to YouTube and we'll find a video to get here. So let's say I'm going to look at this watch video. So if I want to embed this onto my page for people to watch, maybe it's a lecture on something or whatever it might be. The way it works with YouTube is we're going to scroll down here. Underneath the video is the share button on YouTube. So when you click on that share button, it gives you options for sharing it on social media. But the first option is embed, E-M-B-E-D. And when I select that, it gives me this little code. So it's showing me what it looks like, what the thumbnail will look like. And then over here is the code that I can copy and paste. So I'm just going to highlight all of that. I'm going to use Control-C to copy it. And then I'm going to switch back to my page that I've been working on. So once I have that code, when I get to here, let's see, get this in the right spot. I'm going to put it at the very end after everything. So like the picture, I'm just going to do a separate line. And then I'm going to use that embed media button that we talked about. So when I click on it, a box comes up that says embed media dialog. And I just paste the code into that and click OK. Let's see if this works. Yep. So I had just clicked on the right side of now this box that appears saying embedded media. On this end of it, it's not going to show us that thumbnail. We'll have to look at our draft page first, then we'll get to see how it works. But when I clicked on just the right side of it, I can use the align left, center align, or right align to move it into that spot on the page. So I want it centered. I want to center this image as well. I can click just to the right of it, click the center button. So that's all there is to it. Now, if we made a video for the training team and I wanted that video up on the site, I can't just upload the video file like a document because the site can't play the video or let people watch it. So we have to host it somewhere, like YouTube, that's free. The only downside is that well, it might be not a problem, depends on the channel. Just that on YouTube, there usually is ads. But the other thing is that it has recommended videos to keep people on YouTube watching it. So after our video would finish, then it'll have more recommendations for them to watch, but they're still on my KU webpage. So that it's a bit of something to discuss as a team or make a decision on. Are we okay with suggested videos being on our page after the video is done? The other option is called Media Hub, and I can put a link to this in the email as well. So this is a service that KU provides for hosting videos. It's not really just for storing videos that you won't share, it's for when you're ready to distribute a video. But it gives you more control. So there's no advertisement, there's no suggested videos, and it gives you more access in how you'd like that to share. So if only certain people are supposed to see it, then you can get a link that only certain people can use, or you can still embed videos from Media Hub into your web pages. So it's free for you to use as well because it's a KU provided service. So those are like the two main options I would look at. So as long as the video is uploaded there where you can hit play and watch it, then you can get this code, copy and paste it into your page using that embed media button. Okay. I'll do a quick check. Are there questions on content? That's most of our stuff done today. We're going to go through everything else a little bit quick here, but if we have any questions, like I said, feel free to ask them. So I'll point out here before I go, just underneath the body is menu settings. And in here, this box is checked and I can see there's the menu link title. That was the old name of the page. So I'm going to also rename this to the new one that I made. And I can see parent item, it's in resources. So I don't have to change any of this. I'm just pointing it out because we need this whenever we are creating brand new pages that don't exist yet. This is where we put it in the navigation. So we'll come back and see this in a second. All right, I'm going to click save. This is going to take me now to my draft page on the front end so I can see it as the public would before it's live. So the big pink box behind all the text, that's just a visual cue that this is draft, not live. I can scroll through, see all my stuff. And it looks like it didn't center the video, probably because it's in the code itself. I'd have to go back and look at that. But at least I can see the thumbnail. I could click play, see how it works. I can go through and select links. So if I am ready to publish this as an editor, look for this yellow box. This only appears when you're signed in. So it's telling me right now that this is a draft. And I can set the moderation state. Right now it says needs review. I can say published and then click apply. This is now the new page that everybody will see. So it's published, that pink box is gone, and it's live. So now over here in the yellow box, it says revision state published. And I could unpublish from here if I need to. So I know we talked about a lot of stuff there. Again, the links to the sites that I'm going to send you are good resources to look back on this. Practice is key. It's easy to forget this stuff when you don't go in. So finding 5-10 minutes here and there when you can to go in and make updates or practice really goes a long way. And I'm still here to help. If you do have questions moving forward when you're trying to work on your site and it has been a while and you haven't been in and you need a bit of a refresher, you can always ask a person as well. But that's most of it. So what we'll look at next, just quickly, is creating a page to put in this resources section that doesn't exist yet. But we're not going to take the time and go through all that content. So anytime I need to create a new page that doesn't exist, in this gray toolbar at the top of the page, or the screen itself, is the Add Content button. So when I click Add Content, it's going to take me to a list. And these are what we call content types. So there's different templates that we can start from. So if we were adding a page for the different degree programs that the department has, bachelor's, master's, PhDs, we use that template to go through that option. We were just in general content page. That's what the majority of your pages will be. So just a content page. There's one for homepage. So the CMS intermediate class will look at a few more of these content types that we don't have time for, or just it's too much information to handle at once. So the next class will go over some more of these. They're a bit more involved, a couple more steps with those. So we're going to just stick with general content page. I'll click on that. You'll see the very familiar form we just worked in, but everything's blank. So I'm just going to fill this in just that title that's required. So the second training page, I'm going to skip everything here, and then menu settings. So this isn't set for us yet. So if I were to just publish my page without doing anything under menu settings, then it's not going to be in the navigation. The only way to find that page would be to have a link for it. So I'm going to check the box and say, yes, provide a menu link. The title is brought down here for me. And then I have to select its parent. So what section will it go into? Main menu. I'm going to open this in a new tab just to show you. So right now it says main menu. That's this main navigation on the site itself. So if I leave it as main menu, it'll go here next to admission. Or when I select this, I would go find the right section that I want it into. So all these different indent levels, it's just showing you how things are organized. So there's the home, the about section, academics. In academics, we have degrees. And in degrees, we have all of these, the farther indented it goes. I'm going to put this in resources with the other page. So I just scroll and I find resources. So that's where I want it to go. So again, when we create a new page, you give it a title. You would put in your content in the body, work through all the stuff we just talked about, and then you want to make sure you just go through, provide a menu link, and then select the right section that it belongs in. And if, when you get comfortable with this, not if, when you get comfortable with this, or you're making very minor changes, when you're in editing a page, you can go to Publish Options. Just above that Save button that says Publishing Options. And in here is this moderation state. It basically changes what the Save button does. So at the minute, it will save the page as a draft. As an editor, I can actually just have it save as published right away. So if you're fixing spelling mistakes, or you're just really comfortable with your page and your skills working in the CMS, then it's just a way to save a bit of time. So I'm going to leave it as published. When I click save, it's all up, ready for the public to see right away. It took me to the resources section. There's my second training page, the first one I was working on, and any of the content it had. So that's all there is to it. I'll show you how we can rearrange this just in 1 second, but first, does anybody have questions on creating that brand new page, or do they want to see it again? All coming back? No, all right. Lovely. So I don't like it there. I want it to be under academics instead. No problem. Easy way to do that. I'll show you the long way to get here. I actually have a shortcut in my bar that says main menu. So this is the gray one is just for shortcuts, but the system administrators or site admins, they can add things to your site. And we'll look at that in the site admin class and how we can add that. Only the admins can do it. But the long way to get there for us, if we don't have it in our shortcut, is to go to structure. In the structure menu from that black toolbar is menus in that list. So I'll click on menus. Takes me to another table. In that first row, we have main menu. So I'll click on list links in that first row. So structure, menus, and then list links for the main menu. And that brings me here. So this is my navigation on the site. Same indent that we talked about, that's all the same. So it's just showing you the order of things, how they're organized. And if I want to move my second training page from resources, I can use that gray crosshair icon. Just click and drag that page into the right spot. So I want to put it up here. That's where I want it. If I want to move a whole section together, let's say I want to put people after resources, when you move a page that has sub-pages underneath it, they all go along together. So if I drag that, I can go up and down. I can actually put it in as a sub-page of resources if I wanted to, or I can drag it to the left and get it up into its own level. Oh, not where I want it. So you can go left or right or up or down. Just depends where you want to put it. But when you're happy, dragging and rearranging everything, you just click Save Configuration at the very end of that list, and then that's that done. So there's no draft of that. Once you hit that Save button, that's it updated on the site for everyone to see. And while we're in here, just to point out, when you see a page, if you did want to make changes to a page, on that row, there is a button to edit. So that'll take you straight to that content to make changes to it. So that's the second way to get there. You can go to the page itself and click New Draft, or if you're in here, you can click Edit. You can also delete pages from here if you need to clean up any that you're not using anymore. And this checkbox that says Enabled, if that is not checked, then that page is not actually in the navigation. So even though its degrees is set here, if I uncheck it, it basically hides it from the navigation. So no one will see it there. So I'm just going to make sure that stays checked. That's the best way to rearrange the pages. There's a much harder way, and I'm not even going to show you because it's a waste of time. This is your best way. All right, last few things to look at. Let's say I created a page and I forgot to check the box to say provide menu link. And so I want to go back now and do that. I just can't find the page. In the gray bar, we have this section for find content. So let's click on that. And what we'll see is just a list of all content, whether it's in the navigation or not. So it has the title that it was given, what type of content it is. So this is the general content page. We can see that this is a home page. This one's a slide and gallery image. So it'll default to show you the most recent change. So this is the thing that was edited last on the site. So I'd be able to find it here if I forgot to add that menu link. There it is, second training page. From here, I can just click edit and go straight into that content. And then I can scroll below and then set up my menu if I didn't do that before. So find content is great for that. Also, you can use this search and filter stuff at the top of the list. So I can search for a title if I know what it's called, or I can search for specific content types. So if I'm trying to find just general content pages, I don't want to see anything else. Or who might the author be? Is it published? Yes or no? Just ways to kind of help you go through this list and find what you're looking for. We can also delete from here as well. So there's just multiple places, depending on where we are, where we can edit or delete. So really useful. Actually, the last thing I want to show you now is just the reports. So if you haven't done much work on your department site yet, but you're going to be responsible for it, I definitely recommend taking the other CMS classes we offer. What's also a big help getting into your site is to click on reports. And then from there, we'll go KU report. And in here, it's going to show us a list of any pages that are called orphan or unpublished pages. So we get to choose one, the other, or both, even by a minimum age. And then click update. And that'll show us this list here. So there's none that it matches that criteria. Let me go back to orphans. So what an orphaned page is, it's a page without a parent. So we didn't go through and say, provide a menu link and then select what part of the navigation it goes to. So if we didn't do that, it's considered an orphan. It's normal to have these in here. things like slideshow or news or images, those are all fairly normal to see. If I look at this list and I see a page type that is general content page, that's a red flag for me. I just want to double check that page and make sure that it should it be in the navigation, and maybe I just forgot to put it in there, or somebody whoever created it, but it is something that needs to be in the navigation. So it's a way to just help you get your bearings for a new site that you haven't worked on. You can just see what is orphaned if that looks okay, or if we want to just see any list of unpublished pages, then we can see there's one already, Susie's sample page. So I could click on this and go take a look at it and see, is that okay? Should it be unpublished? Should we just delete it altogether? Or is this something that needs to be published? So that's all the reports can help you with. And I will say that's pretty much the essentials. The majority of what we have to do is just updating pages like that or creating new pages. Now, like I said, with the intermediate class, we're going to look at some more of those different content types. So homepage would be one if we wanted to create a whole new homepage. We'll see how that works. It's not very different from what we just did, but it's too much to cover in one class. So we'll look at the homepage. We'll look at creating this people section on this site. So it's a list of our staff or faculty or students with little biography, whatever you want to put in there, their information. So we'll see how we can set something like that up or edit those people. We'll also talk about what are called blocks. So on the site, these blocks are boxes that float off to the side of the pages. We'll work with those two. They work pretty much the same as a general content page when you're putting content in it, but we don't put them in the navigation like a page. We work with them really differently. So we'll practice with those two. And in the site admin class, only the site administrators can edit this information in the footer of the site, where it has our address, phone number, what bus routes we might go to. So sometimes I get that question from editors after this class. They're trying to update it on their site because the phone number is different. Only the administrators can do that. So we'll look at that in the site admin class where that is. But with that, does anyone have any questions at all over what we just looked at today? Lovely. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining me. We'll wrap up early. We've got 10 minutes left. I'll get this video up on the YouTube channel, and I'll send a link to that out if you want to look back on it later or share it with somebody who couldn't come today. So once that's up and ready, I'll send my follow-up email. It'll have the presentation from today, links, plenty of resources on there too. So just something to save in one of your folders to look back on later. But thanks again for joining me. And if you have any questions moving forward or need help with your particular site, you can always reach out to the training team and me as well, and we'll be able to help. All right. Thanks, everyone.